All right, we're glad to have you back. The National Assembly has just spent 2 weeks out of its 9-week annual recess, but this vacation is like no other. They had left a lot of bills unattended too.
Yes, that's correct. A lot has gone under the bridge, and defections, alleged impeachment plots, the funding of INEC for the 2019 general elections, as well as other matters as well. The government has expressed worry that if the lawmakers don't resume soon, there may be a government shutdown.
Absolutely, and stakeholders have said that the National Assembly must reconvene as a matter of urgency to consider and pass the supplementary budget and vehement request made by the president before both chambers went on vacation.
Well, let's now bring in an international lawyer, a public affairs analyst, also a politician, Olufemi Aino. Thank you very much indeed.
He's looking more like a politician.
Well, quite a number of issues really, but the latest development at the moment is that the National Assembly may reconvene sometime next week, or maybe in 1 week time or thereabout, to consider these issues. So there is a sense that gives room for some joy, isn't it?
Well, in a way, but at the same time, still beg the question that if you listen to the press conference yesterday by the Senate President, and I think he addressed some of these issues, and he made it clear that, look, what happened, was it on Tuesday or so, Wednesday, the invasion, that the initial plan was just for the presiding officers to meet and decide the way forward, whether Parliament should be reconvened in order to consider some of these issues which you highlighted. Unfortunately, that didn't happen because of the invasion. And he said, look, he made one point very clear, that we have the interests of the country at heart. And there's a point which I would like to make, is that if the National Assembly is going to take any decision, one way or the other, either whether they're in session or in recess or what have you, there's something that is very paramount, and that must be at the back of their mind, that everything, any of their decision must be motivated by the desire to have a good government and peace in the country. And he said, look, as to the issue of INEC funding and what have you, that's not a problem. We are going to meet the INEC chairman later on today, and I think they met thereafter, and they had an interaction. So the next thing is that I think they're going to reconvene and decide the way forward. So I don't know whether people are expressing the government is going to be shut down. Shut down by who? The government is not going to be shut down because...
government itself expressed such fears that if the Senate does not reconvene as quickly as possible... Yes, that government may shut down.
Well, you see, you have to be very careful of people who are making their homework. That is from the government. You understand me? As for the Senate, they are doing the right thing as we speak. Let's forget about the politics behind the scene about whether we are going to remove our presiding officers or not. The next thing they need to do now is to reconvene. But there's one point which I'd just like to make, because the Senate President said something yesterday, that, look, if we reconvene, this INEC funding, whatever, needs to go before the committee, this and that. You see, by the time they do that, you know, I don't know whether they will take a right decision, because once you get to the committee, there's going to be a lot of discussion here and there. And if care is not taken, they may not be able to take a decision. But one important point, which we are all missing, is this. If you look at Section 83 of the Constitution, it makes it clear that where there is a problem and there is urgent need for fund, the National Assembly can even pass a law to establish what is called a contingency fund. And that contingency fund can be used for any unforeseen circumstances or as the need arises. You know, so that opportunity is there, and that is allowed. And you know, as I do, that even if there is a delay in passing the budget, the president can still spend from the consolidated revenue fund. So I don't know what is the big issues, except some people are just making a mountain out of the molehill. And the Senate President has said clearly that they're going to reconvene, and the decision will be taken. And this issue of INEC funding, anytime we're going to have election, there's going to be a problem. Now, he said something yesterday that where were they in June, in January, June, this this and that. You see,
Up
you
until
should have
now.
addressed all these issues. And you know these people are going on holiday. You as the executive, the onus is on you to put pressure on them that, look, if you go on holiday, you may not reconvene until September. And we have this problem at hand.
So there is a sense in
what
which we
could-
suffer from lack of planning.
It's not limited to lack of planning. There is even lack of coordination. And that is why what you have in this government is that there's what you call lack of joint thinking. A doesn't know what B is doing. Some people are going to send DSS to go and invade without even consulting with the acting president. So, you know, you can't have that. And it is high time. They need to sit down and see that, look, where is the problem coming
How
from?
concerned are you? Still talking about the Saraki speech yesterday, where he said there's a government within Buhari's government that incidentally is against Nigerians who voted for them. That's according to Saraki. Is that
Yes.
exactly what has been playing out? And we're seeing all of this drama because these are the fundamentals that have not been taken care of.
No, I think there's a power at play here. And unnecessary power also, pointless exercise of power that is going on. And if care is not taken, you know, there are so many things going on behind the scene that we are not privy to. And if you look at that press conference yesterday, that was quite a good step in the right direction, because that's the first time the Senate president will come out and explain things to the Nigerians that, look, this is the position. We sent a bill to the president. He said he's not even happy with one of the 3 items. And we said, okay, we are going to do what you asked us to do. You know, that's the first time where the National Assembly has no spokesperson. Nigerians don't know what
Almost
is
like
going
a
on.
State of the Union
you
address.
Understand me? Yes, like a State of the Union address. And they need to do that more and communicate with the people. You are representing the people. It's not that you don't leave us to be second guessing what is happening, why this is happening, and why can't the... I'm not saying there won't be unnecessary bickering between the executive and the legislator. It's part of the democratic process. But what we are saying is that the two of you must be able to work together and take a decision as to how to move this country forward.
But the action of the vice president in responding very swiftly, there is a sense in which, it was good, and Nigerians applauded that. You don't think so?
You mean
That yes,
I
that the action of the
certainly-
president was good.
Well, that's the way it's supposed to be, because, you know, if you give people a responsibility and they are not ready to discharge that responsibility, or they are discharging it in order to cause disunity one way or the other, what do? You get them out of the system. But what he has done, I know people are praising the vice president to high heaven, going on the rooftop shouting he has done well. You see,
think
that
so?
is what he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's why you are there as the acting president. You can hire, you can fire, and you can move people around. You can rejig the government so that they will perform.
But then
That
again,
is
on
why
the other
you are
hand,
leader.
you have a situation where even the presidency had to explain that, yes, the acting president is definitely on the same page with the president, his principal, that he did not take this decision unilaterally.
Unilaterally.
Yes,
Isn't that in itself troubling? Why? Is there a need to even explain this at all?
No, you see, no. I won't be troubled about that
Okay.
at all. You see, sometimes you give honor to whom honor is due. Sometimes you can extend courtesy to people.
But is that what it was
You-
about? Giving honor to whom it's due?
Well, maybe it goes beyond that, but the point is this. The president is on vacation now for the next 10 days.
Yes.
Ideally, in my heart of hearts, I won't mind if he extended for another 10 days, because we have an acting president
Who is really
who
active?
is really
Okay, well,
active.
let's put a hold on that. Of course, Barrister, I know. Let's bring you the news update, and right after that, we'll continue our discussion. The stadium at Ikoda-Ekpene in Akwa Ibom State was packed to capacity as Senator Godswill Akpabio formally announced his defection from the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, to the All Progressives Congress, APC.
And the APC National Chairman Adams Ashimula says the defection of the Akwa Ibom former governor will lead to landslide election victory in the South. That will be next year. Akpabio says his decision to leave the PDP was born out of the need to work with Buhari to tackle the challenges facing Nigeria. And it is said not just from the PDP to the APC that politicians are defecting. It's also happening in other areas as well. The APC has just lost 2 members of its Akida faction. That's in Katsina State.
Yes, indeed. And still on defection, 6 members of the Kano House of Assembly have also decamped from the All Progressives Congress to the People's Democratic Party. The lawmakers are representing Gwarzo, Gwale, Gezawa, Rogo, Madobi and Bichi local government areas of Kano State. Okay, that's the news update right now. Let's get back to our discussion with Barrister Femi Aino, of course, who is an international lawyer. Thank you so much for sticking around.
And also a politician.
Absolutely, and he's wearing that politician's cap this morning. Okay, so still talking about, the consequences of this vacation of the National Assembly. The conspiracy theorists have already gone out saying there are plans by the federal government to scuttle the 2019 election. Otherwise, why would you not have factored in the INEC budget since 2016, 2017, 2018? It was not in the budget, and now you expect a supplementary budget to be tackled by the National Assembly, and then there's the issue of environment.
Well, I think there is an issue there, and I think that's why something that we need to sit down and look at critically, whether there's a need for a change of approach, in the sense that, you see, the executive and the legislatures needs to work hand in hand if we are going to move this country forward. And the Constitution doesn't even allow you just to go on a frolic of your own. Everything you do, you need to report to the National Assembly. The National Assembly needs to give you authority to act. But if you leave things to the last minute, what is happening is what you are going to get. And that is something the government will need to look at. The other thing is that as to whether they are planning to scuttle the election or this. No, the election will still go ahead, come hell or high water anyway, because the Constitution has already envisaged all sorts of scenarios. And some of you will recollect that during the the major Bankole election, there was an issue whereby INEC rushed to Parliament at a stage, asked for substantial amount of funds. That was later on approved, and we had an election. So I don't think there's going to be a problem. But the problem which I envisage is this, is that the government will need to stop this situation whereby they are perceived to be using some of these security agencies as an instrument of oppression. That is something that we need to look at. And at the same time, the political party which is in power need to look at the characters of people who are defecting from one way or the other, because the mantra of this government is the fight against corruption. And if care is not taken, you've just read in your news that the former governor of Akwa has just defected to the APC. Anyway, that didn't come as a surprise, because we've all seen the handwriting on the wall when he started hobnobbing with this, visiting this and that. But there's one issue which is still outstanding. Don't forget, that man is still under, there was an investigation about him by the EFCC. We need to know. Nigerians deserve to know, and this is in the public interest, whether this man has been clear completely. Because if you are not careful, people will start reading minutes that, look, the reason why he's defecting, maybe we get a soft landing.
Is that not happening already?
Well,
and people have talked about this with the former governor of Abia State as well, Oji Uzokalo.
Yes, that is why, if it's me, what I would tell people, those people, is that I'm not saying you can play your politics the way you like, but there are this sword of the Damocles.
Sword of
Damocles. Yeah, thank you. Which is still hanging on your head. Can you quickly resolve that before you come into our party? Because we don't want to give a wrong perception, and we don't want people to make a wrong assumption. So that's something that we need to look at. So.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us, Barrister Femi Aino, international lawyer. Okay.
Politician.
Yes, a politician. Why do I forget that? I should not forget that. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much.